to Immediate Immersion live on this special edition. How's everybody doing today? I hope everybody had an incredible new year, safe and sound with everybody. Getting ready to start 2025 on going downhill and making it wonderful. Sorry, I forgot what I was going to say there. Sorry about that. So today we're doing our follow-up on all those fails that I talked about doing for my first semester. I'm going to talk about the fixes that I plan to implement. We still have one more week left. So this, from the 6th to the 10th, is our last week of first semester. And then on the 13th, we start our second semester. And so these are the ideas that I'm planning on implementing during this time. So I'll let you know about all the things that I plan on implementing. And then I'll come back maybe in a month or so to let you know how it's working and seeing if what I'm trying to do is actually putting a dent into any of the challenges. Before I forget, I have here, I created for you guys today a Fixing Classroom Challenges guide. It's got the stuff that I'm going to be talking about today. You can go to mm.us/challenges to download it for free. So if that's something you want to get for yourself, you can go ahead and do that. So thanks for coming by on a Saturday on a special edition. I greatly appreciate you being here. If you haven't already and you find my information useful and helpful, please subscribe and like the channel so that I can get more information out to more people. Share it with other teachers. That will also help. Now, just a brief recap of what we talked about a few days ago. Number one, the different issues that I was having. Apathy from students, where a lot of my students just didn't care about the class at all. And not just about my class, but any class, and we're failing 2 or more out of 4 classes. And most of my kids were freshmen. So they're failing their first year out already. The horrible issue I'm having with phones this year and not getting support from the parents at all. They don't care about not only the health implications, but also the educational implications, the distraction implications, and even the law that California has come out with stating that every school must come with a concrete, enforceable rules regarding the safe and use of an undistracting use of cell phones in the classroom. Then swearing. Sometimes I feel like I'm in the middle of a Navy ship or in a truck stop because how much swearing that I hear in my classrooms. I can't believe it. Previously, I'd hear a couple of swear words here or there. Even when I taught high school way back when, I taught high school from 2001 to 2012, I still didn't hear a heck of a lot of swearing. But I'm telling you, this year I have heard, not even this year, the first 4 months of school, I have heard so much swearing. So that was an issue. And then after COVID, sorry, my dogs are barking here. Problems with dealing with live. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to mute myself while I take care of the dogs for a second. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. Live. Oh, they're going to still bark. So the side conversations, which got 100 times worse. Sorry, dogs are playing and they're loud when they play. The side conversations got 100% worse after COVID. So that's been a huge issue with all of that. So I want to fix some of those things, and those are the things that we talked about, and those are the things that we're going to try to fix. Give me just 1 moment. I'm going to take care of this. Apologize. I'll be right back. While I'm doing that, let me go ahead and share with you my intro, and then we'll be right back in a moment. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. The perils of having a dog and doing live. Well, having 2 dogs, actually, and being live with everything. So, Today we're going to be talking about the proposed fixes that I have in mind, that I have been trying to think about for the past month or so, about how I want to make changes to what I'm doing to try to rectify some of these issues. And so let's go ahead and start talking about some of those. If you have any questions, any suggestions along the way, please feel free to put them in the chat. If you're watching this on the replay, please go ahead and you can add your questions or comments in the comments there as well, and I'll be sure to check them out and answer any questions you may have. And I want to thank you, those who emailed me privately. They emailed me telling me that they're having a lot of the same issues that I was having, so I'm not alone there. So I'm telling you, you're not alone either. But if you have any questions, comments, or even things that you do in your classroom that help curb some of this stuff, I'm all ears, and you can share amongst us to make a better new semester. Now, as always, with any classroom management issues, it's always about starting with building good, solid teacher-student relationships. Remember, first and foremost, before they enter your class as students, before they become a discipline issue, before they become a grading issue, they are little human beings first. And we need to treat them like living human beings first. Get to know them on a more personal level, outside of their behavior and outside of their grades. That will help tremendously. On top of that, having clear expectations is another thing. You need to have clear expectations that you are letting your students know from the get-go, so they know what the expectations are. They have multiple classes with multiple teachers who have different sets of expectations. Plus, there's school-wide expectations. They've got a lot of stuff keep going. You can't assume that they're going to understand how to behave in your own classroom. And the last thing you need to have before we get started with the specifics today is, oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought again. Being consistent. That is my issue. I sometimes forget, or I'm just tired and don't want to be consistent. But I have a new puppy, and I know that if I can't be consistent, she's learning bad habits. And it's the same thing with students. If you let something go, you're saying that it's okay to get through. And Angela is one of the people who did email me. She says, yeah, my novel. We are all in this together. Yes, Angela, thank you so much. And I will be responding before the end of the weekend. I got a couple of those long emails. You're not the only one. So let's go ahead and get started, because this whole idea that I had here is just having a goal of creating a productive, respectful learning space that allows for everybody who chooses to learn to be able to learn. So the first thing I want to talk about is, Angela says, exactly. Letting it slide means that it becomes the new rule that they expect to be able to get by with. Exactly. So very much. That is so true. And the times we need to be most consistent is when we are least consistent, when we are tired, when we are frustrated, when we are not feeling well. But it is so very important that we have to be consistent. And training a new puppy, I'm learning that. It's so very important. And I might be pronouncing this badly, but Mariushi says, good evening, Scott, and everyone here. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you. Oh, and look, she's got a cute little dog right there with her. Awesome. Okay. So the first thing that I want to talk about is increasing the engagement and reducing the apathy. And what I'm working with is trying to use something called whole brain teaching. It used to be called something else. I forgot. It's been around for over a decade. And I've used it before to some degree, but I haven't gone all in. And I'm planning on going all in this time around. Now I gotta let my dog out. Bear with me a second. Let me let him out. Okay. So there's a website for that. Let me put that in here, wholebrainteaching.com, that has the basics. They also have YouTube videos, and then there's also a book available on Amazon that you can get to read more about it. But what it basically is making your classroom much more engaging with verbal responses and actions that go with it. So in everything that you do, your kids are actively participating. They're not just there sitting there passively. They're actively engaging. So there's different call responses. An example, and I'm doing this all in English, but I'll be translating these commands into Spanish, the ones that I'm choosing to use. The main one, the first one that you're supposed to teach is class, yes, and it's the attention getter. Every time you say the word class, then the kids put their hands together like this and say yes. So for me, I'd be doing clase, and they go sí. And you're supposed to, however the teacher says class, the kids are to respond with yes. So if I go clase, then the kids go sí. Or if I go clase, 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 they go sí, sí, sí. So there's more engagement in that. And you know what? It does supposedly work for high school. I've only tried it in middle school. I've not done it before, but they have videos showing how it's implemented from K all the way through 12. So who knows how much buy-in. But I'm going to explain why I'm doing this to my kids at the beginning so they know. Before I start teaching these things, I want them to know why I'm doing it and what the purpose is and what they're going to get out of doing these types of things. Then the next lesson one you're supposed to teach is you say, please, and they say, okay, with a hand gesture of okay. Now, I know that this symbol in some cultures is not appropriate, so find some appropriate one if it's not appropriate in your culture, but it's okay in the United States, so we can use that one. So every time I say, please, because you always say, please do something, they go, okay. And then you follow up with, thank you. And they go, you're welcome. All through that. It's like a little conversation. They call it the attention getter and then manners. And then they have another one where they go, mere words. And there, now the kids are supposed to do everything that the teacher does. I'll get to your comment in just a moment, Angela. So this is where you're like giving instructions, and you're going to go, there are 3 steps. And the kids are going, there are 3 steps. The first step is take out a pencil. And the kids are going, and the first step is take out a pencil. The second step, take out a piece of paper. And the kids are going, the second step, take out a piece of paper. Third step, write your story. Third step, write your story. Mirrors off. And then they stop. So you teach that type of command so it helps with the instructions. Angela says, I love it. I had my students pick a class name, and when I call out to them, they respond with something. My Spanish ones this year are unicornios, pavos reales, and cuervos. I love the manners plus mere words. That'll be really fun for Spanish ones. Absolutely, that's what I'm thinking, and it's also making them more focused, especially for kids who may be suffering from ADHD or other attention issues. Get some really focused in there and making sure that they're absorbing instructions. Because how many times do you write the instructions on the board, tell them in class, and the kids still are completely lost? That happens all the time in my class, where they ask me, so what am I supposed to do? So this will help with that. The next thing they talk about teaching is the teach. Okay, so teachers go teach, and then the kids go okay, and then they turn to their neighbor and they teach what you just instructed. It could have been a mirror activity. So if it was the mirror activity, I did teach, okay. Now they're going to go right to their partner and they're going to repeat all the instructions back to their partner. Or it could be something else. It could be, let's say we're doing a story and I started with, there is a monster. Teach, okay. So I say teach, the kids go clap their hands, they go okay. And then they go to their partner and then they say the same sentence in the target language to their partner. Hai un monstruo. So you can use it a whole lot of different ways. There's a lot more to it. These are just the beginning activities that they do. There's something called a scoreboard, which I've always implemented a type of a scoreboard. So I'll continue that, but it's part of something I got from whole brain teaching. They also have their rules that they do. And I took some of those rules and they're in my rules that I've always been using for the past decade or so. But I'm going to teach them with gestures right away. It's one of the things that they talk about as well doing. So I highly suggest you go to the website, wholebrainteaching.com. Check out some YouTube videos. They do have some specific ones for different age groups. So you can find the age group that you teach and see any modifications that they're doing. It's been around for at least over a decade. So there are some newer videos and some very old ones. And there's some new things that I don't know about yet that I was watching some review videos yesterday, and there's some new things that I want to incorporate, but I got to learn about them. So I'm going to be reading this website the next week. I also ordered the new book, and it should be coming today so I can read it. I wish it was on Kindle. Only the old version is on Kindle. So I'll be reading a physical book, but I want to read it to kind of get my feet wet so I can start this out successfully right off the bat. And I'm pairing this with Alina Filipescu's action responses that I've learned about years ago, and I still do those. Things like when you say in the target language, I have a secret, or you say the word secret, they put their ears up like this to listen for it. Or if you say cool in the target language, they all make the thumbs up gesture like that. There's different gestures that she uses for different things. And I've made some of my own. I've taken some of hers. I've made a combination. But I'm really going to go wholehearted. I was kind of lazy first semester with the action responses. I didn't do the whole brain teaching at all. But my action responses, I was a little bit lackadaisical. I wasn't consistent. And so I need to get back consistent. So that will really, really help along the way. So I'm hoping that those two things will help with the engagement part, because it's going to be very difficult for the Alina Filipescu. She has a YouTube channel, Alina. I don't know. I never can. Let me see if that's the way to spell it. Bear with me while whoops. I hit the wrong button. So Alina Filipescu. Let me just make sure I'm spelling it right here. Bear with me 1 second. Alina Filipescu. Almost had it right. Filipescu. She's Romanian, and she speaks many languages, and she teaches in Orange County, California. She teaches Spanish to middle schoolers. So there it is, Alina Filipescu. And I learned about her action gestures years ago, and I've implemented. As I said, I've changed some of hers. I didn't really like the gestures that she used. It didn't work well for my students. And then I've added some other ones in there. Like whenever I say the word problem in Spanish, de nada. Whenever I say problem in Spanish, then they go, oh no, oh me, oh my. I think she does dun dun dun. But I like the oh no, oh me, oh my a little bit better because it's more engaging for them. All of those types of things. And something I used to do as well, and I haven't done in a while, is like when there's dialogue in my story, I would have the audience repeat it, kind of like interactive theater back in the olden golden days. And so I want to do that as well. I want to incorporate a little bit more of that in my stories as well, a little bit more than I have been in the past few years to get that engagement up. I kind of let some of these things lax because in my old school, I didn't have to work at the engagement as much. They were there with me. But now I have so much more apathy in my students that I'm really needing to work on that engagement. And so it's going to be harder to be on their phones. It's going to be harder to be asleep when they are required to actively, physically move with different things that I say. So that's my first thing for engagement, and how I'm hoping that this is going to help to increase the focus and participation and reduce the overall boredom, apathy, and create just a more dynamic classroom atmosphere. That's my goal. We'll see if it happens. I'll come back in about a month and I'll let you know how it's going. Next, let's talk about cell phones because, oh my gosh. I don't know if I mentioned in my last video, but I think I did, that my old school district banned the cell phones 100%. And I have to check in with my friends about how that's doing. We're having a get together towards the end of the month, and I'll ask them about that so I can see how that's going. We don't have that ban at our school. We have a tiered disciplinary issue, but the problem is they've never really enforced it. When you follow the procedures and send up the write-ups, the administration is not consistently following through with those. And so if you don't enforce a rule, it's not a rule. And so that's what we're happening. But we got a notification that a board regulation has come down in compliance with the new state law that we have in California. And we'll see how well that is implemented. But regardless of that, this is how I'm going to plan on working with the cell phone and making it aware. First of all, I'm going to email my parents right away. So my parents, I don't have my students until the 13th, but starting next week, I'm going to send out an email welcoming my parents, tell them about my class and such like that. And I'm going to put in here not only issues with the phones, why we're so harping on these phone issues, whether they're the health, the mental, the bullyingness, the learning distractions, all of that, and the overall phone addiction these kids have. I did a tally last semester, right before, maybe 2 weeks before winter break, about how many hours that kids were spending on their phone. I told them to go up and look on their active minutes on the phone. There's a spot where you can see your screen time on the phone. And I said, raise your hand if you have less than an hour. Raise your hand if you have between an hour and 2 hours. And I had some people over 8 hours of screen time actively using their phone. 8 hours, that's a work day. And that's what they're doing. And no wonder they're coming to class sleepy because they're not getting the sleep that they need. Plus, we know that the screens are affecting their sleep patterns. So there's lots of different issues. And so I want to make this aware to parents to let them know right off the bat. Now, the first thing I'm going to do, and I saw a video on this maybe a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, I don't remember, where a teacher did this. For one school day, the teacher let the kids keep their phones on, volume up, not on mute, not on vibrate, full on. They couldn't answer anything, but every time there was a notification on their phone, they were to raise their hand, and she put a tally mark on the board. And she kept track of how many tally marks, how many times kids got notifications in one class period. I think her class period was about an hour. Mine is about 90 minutes. But I want to see how many actually, so the kids can really be conscious about that. That's what I really want to know right off the bat. I want to see so that they can see how many notifications, how many disruptions are happening in one class period. So they can see what that astronomical number is. And I'm going to do that for each class. And then all my classes are going to see those tallies. so they can see how much disruption it really, really is. And I'm going to facilitate some kind of a group discussion afterward about these results, focusing on the distractions and how they impact focus and learning and causing anxiety because maybe they're not getting the notifications that they're expecting, or anxiety they're getting too many notifications and they think there might be a problem that they've got to respond to right away. All of those types of things. So we're going to have that discussion. So no language learning is going to happen that day. But I think by taking some of these precautionary things and taking the time out front, it may reduce the time of me spending disciplining it later. Who knows? We'll see. I'll let you know in about a month. And I just want them to know that this is an eye-opening activity. It's not a punishment. It's just to build awareness and buy-in so we can actually see how unhealthy electronic devices are. And you need to be ready to share your screen time and your notifications as well. It's not just the kids. And so I'm hoping that students just become more aware of how much phone use disrupts focus, how it's leading to a decrease, and hoping it's leading to a decrease in pushback when I do enforce the phone policies. The second thing I'm going to do, and this is in compliance not only with our old rules, but now the new rules by the board, I see it, I take it rule. I have a poster in my classroom that says, I see it, I take it, and it's a picture of a jail with a phone inside the jail. I call it phone jail. So I'm telling them right away, it's immediate. There are no warnings, because the warning is you are not allowed to have your cell phone in class. I should not have to repeat that. These are high school students. They know this. It's in the school policies. They know they're not supposed to use their phones. So there is no warning. It is immediate confiscation of if I see the phone during instructional time. Now, no exceptions. You need to be consistent and fair with this. So you can't pick and choose who you're going to do it for. If your favorite student does it, you take their phone too. This is so you don't have to, you can avoid some of those arguments and exceptions that are going on. So if they go, but you didn't take Johnny's phone or you didn't take Sally's phone, it doesn't matter. You take them all every single time. Now, once your phone is in jail, your phone is always in jail for the rest of the school year with me. I don't give them, they don't have an opportunity to get it out. I'm only going to add a caveat to that. They don't think there's a way to get it out. Sometimes, and it's only for some students, and it's only sometimes, if I see that there's another issue that we need to work on. Let's say, like, here's an example. I did it last semester. I had a kid who was always self-defeatist when it came to a listening quiz. He said, I can never understand the listening quizzes. I always get a C. I hate the listening quizzes. But he's a good student. He could do much better. He just needs to focus a little bit more. So I told him, I said, if you get an A on the listening and reading quiz that we have coming up, you get an A on both of them, I will parole your phone. Your phone will go out on parole. I had another student who had a trouble with talking, always talking in class. So I made a deal. I'll parole your phone if you can stop all the side conversations for a full week and continue that beyond. My rule was strict, though. If I see it out even for a second after it's been paroled, it's back in and there's no more parole. You've lost your parole, never can happen again. But the idea is my kids are thinking that that phone is locked away every day for the rest of the school year if I see it. It's not just for the day. It's not just for the week. It's every day. Every day. Because I said, you lost me the trust that I have. You lost the trust that I have in you to be able to use your phone responsibly. Angela says, interesting. I like the idea of keeping that one student's phone in phone jail for an unlimited time. I started this in the last month of first semester, like the month of December, and it started to work. So I'm hoping that it's going to continue to work. I'm starting it from right in the beginning and being really, really consistent. And I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name, Malika. I'll talk to you about your issue in just a moment. So we have that in there for that particular reason. I have a little spot where they go. I bought a little case from Amazon for like $30 where they can go in there. Now, some of my other neighbors, they are taking the phones from every student at the beginning of the class. But part of my building relationships with students is I tell them I treat you like an adult until you show me that you're not. And usually kids will rise to the occasion. But if they can't, then I'll take that phone. So that's how I'm happening. They've got a sign. It says, if I see it, it's mine. It goes to phone jail. It's nothing personal. It's anybody I see a phone for doing anything with a phone, period. Now, Malika says, I have a lot of ELL students who rely on their phones for English translation. That makes me second guess taking their phones. We are a one-to-one school, so they have Chromebooks, and they can use their Chromebook for that, or you can make an exception for those kids. Now, how I would do that would be, I would make sure that I'm walking behind them. Yes, just 1 second, Mariushi. I'll walk behind them to make sure what they're doing on their phones is actually, translation. They're actually doing it for school things. 9 times out of 10, they say they need it for school things, and 9 times out of 10, they're not using it for school things. So I prefer them to use their Chromebooks, and then I can monitor from my desk their Chromebook, what they're on their Chromebook. I can limit them. So maybe they're stuck on Google Translate, and they can't go on anything else during that period of time. I can do that for them. So that's how I would handle that one, Malika. I don't have a heck of a lot of ELL students in my class, but I do have a couple of them. They usually are higher in the ELL process, so they aren't as reliant as translations as some maybe the new students coming in. So I'd handle that a little bit differently. But one thing that's good about Google Translate, especially on the Chrome, is they can turn it on live translate. So it listens to what I'm speaking, and it puts a transcript at the bottom of the screen that they can see. It's constantly doing that, and it can really help them that way. And then they can use a Chromebook or a computer for that type of thing. Mariushi says, can you repeat the phrase, I treat you like an adult until you're not? I use that with everything. Bathroom passes, anything. I treat them like an adult, because what I find is we don't give enough credit for the maturity that many students have. And this is from kindergarten all the way up. There are some kindergartners who are very mature and very responsible, and I want to acknowledge that. So my assumption always is going into a classroom is that you're going to act not age appropriate, but adult appropriate. And if you're not, then we can deal with it on a one-to-one basis. And I find that works really, really well in most situations. And again, if it's an issue, then I talk to that student one-on-one, and then they don't have that privilege anymore. So, for example, we're going to talk about bathroom use coming up, but one of my previous rules was I cannot stand being interrupted for the bathroom. Cannot stand it, cannot stand it, cannot stand it. I don't like my flow to be interrupted. So it was, you need to go to the bathroom, you log out, you go to the bathroom, you come back, you log back in. Nice and simple. You don't have to ask, just go. But if there's a problem, you're going every class period, every day, or multiple times, or you're staying out way too long, then we're going to have a problem and we're going to talk about it. And we're going to involve your parents, and then you no longer have that privilege to be able to do that. And you'll be on restricted bathroom use, those types of things. So that's kind of what I'm doing in that particular regard. Now, I'm hoping with this cell phone jail that it's providing a clear and predictable structure for phone use with fewer disruptions and less resistance to enforcement. Because I'm not taking everybody's phone, so they're not being found guilty before they actually committed a crime. So I'm hoping that that's going to lead to less resistance, because they go, yeah, I knew the rule. You said if you saw it, you'd take it. You saw it, you're taking it. It's fair. The next thing I'm going to try with cell phones is a cell phone break. Now, I've heard of other teachers doing this before. I've never tried it in my classroom. I never needed to. But I know when I've talked about it to other teachers, they're like, I don't want to give up class time for this. But my thought behind it is, I'm already giving up class time when kids and multiple kids are on their phones. So what I'm thinking about is giving them a cell phone break. So just 5 minutes, or it might be less depending on how long your class period is. My class periods are 90 minutes, 4 days a week, and 60 minutes, 1 day a week. That's for our PLC time. So I'm going to introduce a 5-minute phone break during the middle of class. Not really the equal middle. It's going to be between the middle and the end of class. So probably in the 3/4 spot, somewhere in that. And I'll find an established time where I do it, and we'll fit really close that I'll have a student job who tells when it gets to that time, and we'll do that. So what it will be is, it's rewards based. So as long as I haven't had to take anybody's phone away during that first 3/4 of the class period, then I will let everybody use their phones, check their phones for 5 minutes. That's it. Once the 5 minutes are done, phones go away, and we will continue. If, however, in that first 3/4 of the class period, I've had to talk about phones or remind about phones or earbuds or any of those electronic devices, then we don't get the 5 minutes. So I'm thinking that for many, that 5 minutes might be enough to curb their addiction for at least a little bit, and that they're going to work towards that and maybe even self-police their neighbors about that, because put your phone away, we're going to lose that 5 minutes time. So giving them that 5 minutes to do whatever they want on their phone, whether it be text their friend or check their messages or play a quick game, 5 minutes for them to do that. And again, depending on the age, depending on the class, depending on how long you have them for, you can adjust that time. I wouldn't give them more than 5 minutes. As I said, most classes are an hour and a half or less, at least in the United States. And so 5 minutes is the max I would give. And as I said, other teachers saying, well, that's 5 minutes of class time you're giving up. I'm like, it's better than the hours that I'm giving up, because I'm having, a third of my class on their phones or having sneaking earbuds in their ears. So I'm hoping that them knowing that they're going to get this time in class every day, that it's going to reduce that dependency on checking their phones or playing on their phones during instruction time, and makes for a more cooperative environment. That's my hope. We'll see how it works. Anybody else have any ideas or suggestions that they're doing for cell phones? And again, because I know we've got some new people who have joined us, I have a little fixing my classroom challenges guide that I created that you can download at mm.us/challenges. So you can go there and download that. It's got the stuff that we're talking about today. So if that's something you want to download, feel free to do so. And let's see. Angela says, if your school allows that, it could work. We have to have a sign, we will enforce the rules as teachers post in our rooms, and one of those is no cell phones. Yes, we have the same rule. Teachers don't follow it, period. They just don't. But there's also a caveat in our rule, even in the board's rule that came down, unless the teacher gives explicit permission. So that's where I can I can still follow the rule because I'm strict with the cell phones. And even if I'm subbing for a class, I don't know what the teacher's cell phone rule is, so I implement mine. I don't want to see your cell phone. I don't care if your teacher lets you listen to music. I'm not letting you listen to music. It's sorry, that's my rules. So I do follow that. But if your school allows any cell phone usage in class, then the 5-minute break is highly valuable. That's what I'm hoping. And as I said, we have that exception with teacher permission because sometimes they don't wear out of backup Chromebooks, and I need them to take a quiz. Now, if it's a Kahoot or something, there's a self-consequence there. They don't have their Chromebook charged, and they can't get a backup one. So sorry, so sad, you don't get to play. But for assessments in that, I do most of my assessments online, so I'll let them use their cell phone for that particular reason. Angela, especially as a chilled brain break or something. Yes, because sometimes in my brain breaks, not all of my kids liked the brain break that I chose, so they took a different brain break. They went on their phones, which I was okay with during that time, but as long as they went away when we were done with our brain break. Because I had one class, I have them only for one more week. They were obsessed with hot potato. I don't know why. That's the only brain break that they wanted to do. The only one. But what was good, it was like a dog with a toy. I held it over their heads. You guys aren't paying attention. There's no hot potato today. And so that's what they wanted to play. But I had 2 girls who didn't like to play that, so they were on their phones for that time. When the other girls and all the boys wanted to play that. So I was good with that during that particular time. Yes, so exactly, a brain break of sorts. Mariushi says, how do you play hot potato? I have a little Nerf ball, that brand, that soft ball, and then they're to pass the ball around to each other. And when the music, and I play music in the background, when the music stops, whoever has the ball is out. And we play until we play, usually, because I only had a small class. I only had 8 kids in that class, and 2 of them weren't playing. So 6 kids were playing, and it would quickly, each game would last about 2 minutes, because depending on how fast you stop the music. And when the kids, I gave candy to the winner. And the second time we play it, then I played 2 rounds when they only were a few kids. My other class had about 20-some kids in it, and so that one took a little bit longer to get everybody out, so we only played 1 round. But it's basically, you're playing music. They have this Nerf ball, a soft type ball that they're tossing back and forth with each other while the music is playing, and when the music stops, whoever has the ball or last touched the ball is the one out. My kids got really involved in this, and that ball is like the hot potato, because it's called a hot potato because you don't want to touch it for too long because it's supposed to be hot. So it's a children's game, but my high schoolers love playing it. It was their favorite game, brain break, that I did. Great question. Okay. Next, let's talk about swearing. Oh, sí, la papa caliente. Yeah, that's what I call it in class too, la papa caliente. And I get to teach them the difference between la papa caliente y el papá. So they know the difference between the two. But yes, exactly. Swearing. As I said, in 23 years of teaching, I have never had this issue where so many, not just 1 or 2, so many kids were swearing. On a regular basis, it just comes out of their mouth as it were regular words. I was raised very differently. I am not, I can't even think of the word in English anymore. What's the word? I am not a prude. That's the word I'm looking for. I am not a prude in any way, shape, or form. I don't generally use a lot of swearing in my regular life, and I know when it's appropriate, when it's not. And in school, it's not appropriate. I have to filter what I might want to say, and the kids need to learn how to filter what they want to say. And someone pointed out that, if you're swearing at a job, you might lose your job for that type of thing. So you've got to learn how to behave in that particular way in different particular settings. You don't swear in church. You shouldn't be swearing at a job. You shouldn't be swearing at school, etc., etc., etc. And sometimes the swearing so much can evolve into harassment, if not sexual harassment, depending on what kind of swear words that you're using. But it's been a problem. And as I said, if it was only 1 or 2 kids, it's 1 or 2 kids, but it's not. It's in my small classes, it's 3 or 4 out of 8. And in my bigger classes, it's at least half my kids who are using the swear words all the time. They don't even realize that they're doing it. So I didn't know. I was Googling and looking for a lot of different solutions. And most of the solutions came up with the stuff I've already done. Clear rules, writing kids up, calling their parents. Lots of times I'll be calling their parent about them swearing, and the parent is swearing on the phone, saying, "Oh, my stupid effing kid," those kinds of things. You're like, okay, there's no point in having this conversation anymore because I see where they're getting it from. So I needed to find something else. So I was looking for out-of-the-box things, and I spent 2 days searching for things to try. And one of the things I'm going to try, I don't know how it's going to work. I'm hoping that because it's humorous, that it's going to be funny and that we're going to laugh about it, and it's going to be, lighthearted way to talk about this stuff. But I'm going to encourage students to use humorous or neutral replacements for the swear words. So for each swear word, we're going to have a translated word that we're allowed to use in class. An example might be fudge nuggets instead of the F word, or things like that. Sugar honey iced tea I saw was an alternative for the S word. So some things like that. So at least they're funny, and we're not using those. I mean, my mother, when growing up, she used euphemisms, this is a kind of way, but with a little bit more humor in it. Fettuccine Alfredo was my study hall solution. Yes, that's a good one. I know in Spanish, instead of the M word, they use miércoles. So we all have them. My mom used to say, son of a gun. Or there's another one she used to say too. What else did she say? I can't remember. But to avoid using the words. So we're going to start with this. I'm going to give them a dictionary of, F word, this is what we're going to say. S word, this is what we're going to say. On top, it's going to say we're going to try to refrain from using these at all, either version. But if you have to, if you can't stop, sugar honey iced tea instead of the S word in in English, the mierda, that word. Because it spells, if you look at the initials of those words, sugar honey iced tea, it spells out the word. I learned that from a kid many years ago. A kid did that. He'd always just scream out, sugar honey iced tea. And I didn't know what that meant, and he explained it to me. So, yes, on my little dictionary, I'm going to say, we are trying to refrain from swearing at all. But if you must, here, de nada, here is what we're going to use instead to make the class a little bit more lighthearted and a little bit less offensive. Because I had a kid who had lots of anxiety, and when he kept hearing these swear words, he had to leave the class because he couldn't take it anymore. So that's harassment, and that's not fair to him or anybody else having to hear those types of words. So we're going to create this class to create with the class this replacement list, and we're going to make sure that we follow it. And we're going to make it lighthearted, make it a challenge, and rewarding students for using these replacements instead of the other ones. And I'm hoping we have a big laugh about them, so it becomes less of a big deal. And I'm hoping that that's going to bring a reduction, or at least make them think a little bit more. Mariushi says, do you happen to have that replacement list? No, I haven't made it yet. I'm gonna try to make it with my kids. Those are just some ideas that I know of. You can also Google a list too, but I want to make it more with my kids on there, so that there's more of a buy-in in that. Angela says, I personally use chicken nuggets and cheese balls for all my frustrated expletives in English. Yes. We all have the things that we say. Shut the front door. A lot of kids do all kinds of different things. But I'm going to solicit a list from my students and then word it out. Oh my golly, because previous school was so strict that oh my God was considered offensive. Yes. I know some teachers think crap is a bad word, or damn, and it just depends on the culture that you're in and the school district that you're in. Do with what you do, but I encourage you, if you're going to do this, to make a list with your kids, because you're going to have a buy-in. If you come up with the words, I don't think there's going to be as much buy-in. It's another time an adult is trying to control a kid's life, and I don't want it to appear like that. So I'm hoping that we can come up with some list. If not, I'll have some backup suggestions that I'm going to Google. I don't have a list. I know I had, let me see if I have, I did start a Google list, and they have things like fudge nuggets, cheese and crackers, son of a biscuit, holy guacamole, what the fluff, good gravy, for the love of pickles, Jiminy Cricket, fiddlesticks. But some of these are old-fashioned. Some of them are funny, but I figured I'd let them help me come up with some of these. I remember one that we used to have as a kid, HE double hockey sticks for hell. A lot of different things, but I'm gonna have a backup list, but instead I'm trying to get them to come up with their list. Does that make sense, Mariushi? Yeah, the fettuccine Alfredo was their idea. So when they make it their own, I think the buy-in is there for people who are just really bad at watching their mouth. Exactly. That's what I'm hoping. Now, the other idea that I'm going to try, and I don't know how this is going to work or if it's going to work. I did do an implementation of this when I taught in Las Vegas. I only need to do it with my heritage speakers. The kids that I got were from the rougher end of the street, and so we're used to using the cuss words. It's my only experience with it. They nowhere near use them as much as these kids do. But they would often trail 3 F words right in a row with each other in one sentence. And we had a swear jar, and they had to put in $1 every time they made a swear. And then we used that to fund when we had a class party. When they earned a class party for other things, we would use the money in the swear jar to pay for food for that. That's how we did that. So I wasn't just pocketing the money from the kids. It was going back to the kids in some way, shape, or form. I'm sure it was not exactly kosher that I was doing that in my classroom. But the alternative was, the school rule was, if a kid swore in class, they were to be kicked out and sent to the office. Well, if I did that in that particular class, I would have no students left because all of the students did that. So I just didn't want to, I didn't want to have to deal with it. I still wanted to teach them. I'd rather have them in class. And so they didn't complain about this. They did it. They put their money in there, and they knew it would come back to them eventually when we earned a class party. So that's how I handled that. So what I'm switching this time because I know this is not kosher in most districts. That I'm going to give some kind of a token that they're going to have to turn in. Maybe it's the participation points that I give them. They're going to have to turn in a set number. I'm going to deduct a set number for them. Or they can, and then they can, and if they don't use them, then they can use them for privileges. So maybe I give them a couple of tokens that when they curse, they have to put it in the thing. I deduct the points from the participation points. But if they have their tokens at the end of the week or the month, however long I want to go for, at the beginning, I think I'm going to go with twice a week just to get them started. So we'll check on Wednesday and then we'll check on Friday. And then I will give them extra bonus points for turning in the tokens that they didn't use that week. So I'm going to try something like that. I haven't really thought out how I'm going to really implement that, but I'm trying to do some kind of system that way, kind of a reward punishment type system without them getting in real trouble. And then if we can go a period of time where I don't have a cuss word, like we can go a whole class period and nobody cusses, then I might give them bonus points on my scoreboard that I have in class. So that those points they earn towards a class party or a movie or some other type of privileges along those ways. So I'm going to try that. I'm hoping it'll make them feel more conscious about what they're doing. And if they use one of the substituted words, then they're not going to lose those tokens that we're going to do. It's only when they actually use the cuss word, they choose to use the cuss word versus something else. I'm hoping it's just going to increase their consciousness that they're using these words all of the time. So that's what I'm hoping. Who knows? I'll come back in a month and I'll report back on how it's working. Does anybody else have any ideas or suggestions that they have for dealing with cussing in the classroom? Or it may not be a problem for you in your district. It wasn't before, but now that I'm in a lower middle class to upper poverty area, and I'm not trying to judge them based on the money that they make, I'm just describing the socioeconomic area that I teach in right now, I'm having a much higher increase of cussing, and not just from the students, but also the parents. And I don't mean the parents are cussing at me. It's just the free use of these words in their regular sentences. Okay, let's go to the next one, which is the bane of my existence. It's always been a problem, but it got 10 times to 100 times worse after COVID. And I thought it was bad when I taught middle school the past, 4 years after COVID. But it is really bad in the school that I'm teaching in, because they do not care. They will have their conversation about whatever they want to talk about, even if the person they want to talk to is across the room. They don't care who hears. They don't care what they interrupt. It is so disruptive. And I have a rule. You are not allowed to talk to your neighbor during class, period. But it's really hard to consistently enforce when it's happening with 5 to 7 kids every single day, every single minute of every single class. So one of the things I need to work on, and I'm going to do, and this is an old-fashioned thing. It's not the old-fashioned, it's just the traditional thing that we do, is I'm going to use more physical movement. I do this in certain phases of my teaching, but when I'm doing like a story or I'm doing a reading where I'm in a certain spot, and with a story I'm writing words on the board, I'm usually towards the front of my room. I'm not moving around the room as much. During other activities, I am circling around the room. But I'm going to start making sure that if I'm noticing side conversations, I'm going to start teaching from that spot, even if it's inconvenient for me because I have to go longer to get to the board to write words down or to point at things or whatever the case might be. So I'm hoping that that will start to help, that my being right next to them might make them more uncomfortable so that they aren't going to converse. To be honest, I'm not sure how much these kids are going to care, because I can walk behind them while they're texting and they do not care. They keep on going. I could read their text if I wanted to over their shoulder, and I don't think they would care. So I don't think that this is going to make much of a dent, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try it and see. And it might make a dent for a couple of kids, maybe not for everybody. I don't know. Again, I'm going to check. The other is the consistency, which we talked about at the beginning today. Remember the old adage, discipline before instruction. You can't instruct if there are discipline issues going on because they're not learning anything. So you need to stop instruction and you need to discipline. Then you continue with instruction. So I have done this in a variety of different ways. I typically just stop and wait. But it's been suggested that I use a hand signal along with the waiting, so having the hands up. Then the kids will tend to put their hands up and it quiets everybody down a little bit more. So I'm going to try that. But I'm going to stop instruction immediately when a side conversation begins. I'm going to tell them that they are breaking rule number 1. You may not talk to your neighbor during class. I'm going to call them out by name. And I'm going to wait till it stops until we move on with the lesson. If it doesn't stop in a reasonable amount of time, then I might have to have a side conversation with those students outside the classroom for a moment. But I cannot continue teaching while they talk. I will refuse to teach over them. Because the kids will just say, they're just talking, just go ahead and talk over them. I don't want to talk over them. And it's rude. And they lost some of their social skills during COVID when they were on distance learning because they were on Zoom and they could do whatever they wanted. There was nobody there to stop them. They could put the teacher on mute. They could look like they were paying attention while they were texting the whole time on the phone. Or they could have a whole conversation because they didn't even have to have their cameras on. So they learned all of these bad habits. And for a lot of them during the important social skill years, they missed because they were at home on Zoom. And I want to use a consistent language like, we can't move forward until everyone is focused. Angela says, my new thing this year is cue cards. I went to a multi-day behavior conference over the summer, and it was one of the suggestions, and I think it has been good for interrupting bad habits. I've tried that as well, and it worked okay in my middle school. I don't think it would work with my rougher kids in high school. At least the high school that I'm teaching at currently. I mean, here are some of the blatant things that my kids do. I have a child in one of my classes who stole over-the-ear headphones from a kid the day before. Then brings them back to school. And wears them on his head to class, in the class that he stole them from in the first place. And when the kid said, those are mine, he goes, no, I brought them from home. The kid opened up his phone and they connected immediately to the headphones. That's how blatant my kids are. And so these little cue cards, and I know exactly what you're talking about. I've seen them and I've used them before. I also have positive ones, like I like how you're listening right now. Those I would put on there as well, because some kids didn't like to be called out even for positive things. I don't think would work for these kids. I don't think. They just don't care. Some of them would tell me what to do with those little pieces of paper. I'm not kidding you. They're just it's just a rougher crowd than I'm used to. And it may work for you. And so that's great if that works. Because it worked for me in middle school, and I taught in my middle school. It worked fine. I didn't learn about it in my previous high schools, but I'm sure it would have worked there as well. I just don't think this particular crowd that I'm teaching that will work with. But if nothing else works, I might go and try that. I might go and try that because I am very good at giving positive. I have postcards that I buy and I send them out to the kids when they do stuff good so that their parents can see. They feel proud about those things. I'm really good about that. I'm even good about putting sticky notes. Like if I see a kid who's kind of quiet all the time, I'll just put, I'm glad you're here, and stick it on his chair before they come to class. I'm good at those kinds of things. So I was really good at putting these interrupters. Some called them flag on the field plays on there. Some just did color coding. You're in the red or the yellow. So you're in, you're green right now, but I just put a yellow. That's a warning. The red is now you have a consequence. Those type of things. If it works, great. And I may have to resort to that to try it. But as of right now, from my experience from my first semester kids, I think they would just laugh at me. I could be entirely wrong. I don't know. But if what I'm thinking of doing right now doesn't work, then I'm going to be all open to suggestions, and I'll try that as well. Because it's really become a problem where it's really hard for me to teach when they're constantly interrupting. I mean, I have that same kid with the headphones just interrupts class and will tell us what he did over the weekend. And it's not school appropriate what he did over the weekend. And he doesn't care. And he just blurts it out. If they need the direct interruption because your kids need that structure, I do feel like I can be at a point where I can just stop and look at them and say, absolutely not, and go on. I'm just not sure how we got to that point. I know. But it's not just us, because I've seen some YouTube videos addressing this. They call it civility, that the kids have lost civility, things that were just expected. And they're talking about pre and post COVID. And so I really think we know mentally that the distance learning and the separation, everything during COVID had some real effects to the mental wellness of our kids. And I think also for many of the kids, they didn't learn the social skills. They just didn't have the social skills. They didn't learn them in class because they weren't in class. They get away with. Angela, I do think my school is rougher than elsewhere I've worked. Yeah, this is no, I wouldn't say. In Vegas, it was pretty rough. I had a lot of variety of different kids. I had a lot of gang kids in class. I had a kid arrested in my class in the middle of class because he assaulted a police officer in Vegas. So I had some rough kids in Vegas, but they still knew basic classroom manners. And I think during the crucial years for learning that, the kids that I have now, because let's see, 4 years ago, they're in 9th grade. So they're like 4th or 5th, maybe 4th or 5th grade is where they were during COVID times, that they didn't learn those big skills. And I think that's the big problem. And so if it means that I sit down and do a real talk about being quiet, then we will have that moment. Yes, I have had that as well. I've had that. We did an intervention at one of my classes, and that was in my old district with my middle school kids. We had a class that was just really bad, not only with behavior, but with bullying and all kinds of things in class. So we had a come to Jesus moment. We had an intervention that we took 2 days. We brought the counselor in, and we held this time to have this discussion. And so I guess I mean rougher as in self-management behavior, like what is even acceptable at school or not. Yeah, I do. And in my case, speaking with many of the parents, it's a home issue too, because the parents aren't parenting at home in a lot of cases. Not in every case, but in a lot of cases, they're not parenting at home, and they're making excuses for their kid along the way and not allowing the school to discipline as they're supposed to. And so I think that is also a problem. And as I said, the only thing that I know that has changed from where I was to where I am is the socioeconomic breakdown of my kids. I was in the high mid to low affluent area before. And so these kids were not used to cussing. We're not used to talking over adults. We're not used to using their phones in front of their parents at the dinner table. Where these kids are more used to that because the parents allow that kind of behavior to happen. So I don't know what the answer is. We'll see what works and what doesn't. We'll come back in a month and we will try. And the last thing with the side conversations that I'll talk about is that hand signal. I'm going to try to make it not just a me wait. I'm going to put my hand up as well, just waiting for that. And also going back to my whole brain teaching, my class, yes. That might also help curb that in there. So some of this side conversation stuff could be handled by those actions and gestures and the whole brain teaching idea. They might work together to curb this. We'll see. The whole brain teaching, they might laugh right in my face because I have a rougher crowd. I don't know. I'm going to try and we're going to see what happens. That's all that I can say. We'll try and see what happens. But I thank you for your suggestion, Angela. And I'll be at the back of my mind because I have those cards. I've used them and they're in my desk. I just not sure how effective they will be with this group of kids. Now, this first semester group of kids may be very different from my second semester group of kids. So I may not have to go hard with any of these things. I don't know until I get those kids. But I just want to be prepared where I wasn't so prepared at the beginning of the school year when it was brand new. Plus, these kids will already have a semester of freshman year behind them. And so they may have learned how high school is different from middle school. So hopefully that will work. And if we have to do a class reset, if we have to have a day where we're talking about why it's not appropriate and what do we do instead type of things, then we will have those moments. Whatever it needs to be done, I'm willing to do because I want the kids who want to learn to be able to learn. When it's cheesy, though, I think you can really say, yeah, you're probably too cool to do this cheesy stuff, but we're doing it anyway because it's for science and for fun. I do say that. That's a really, really good thing. I tell them all the time. I go, the first thing I learned as a teacher is I lose my dignity at the door because I do these things with you as well. So when we do our gestures that go with our vocabulary, they're goofy for a reason. And I'm like, I'm doing them just like you, and I am in my 50s. Or I sing along to these goofy songs that we do in class too, and I dance along with them. So if I'm doing it, you can do it. So I'm hoping that will help, and I'm hoping it's going to make it more fun for them and make school a little bit more enjoyable. That's what I'm erring on the side of. But as I said when I started with this, and I told you about the whole brain teaching, I'm going to tell them the why behind it, the science behind it, why it's going to work. And Angela adds, if there's no wiggle room, hopefully they'll fall in line even if they are annoyed by it. Yes, I agree. I'm hoping for a better semester. I'm going in with a positive attitude. I'm going to go in for wishful thinking. I'm going to go in with the idea that I'm going to fake it until I make it and see where it goes from there. And my last one I want to talk about today, Angela says, I think being able to fall back on the science of things just makes no room for argument, even from parents. Absolutely, except when it came from cell phones, because I sent out an email with a link to the information that healthcare workers and mental health workers were talking about, and they still said, nope, you're not taking my cell phone from my child. Angela says, heck yes, fake it and that deep breath if my faking isn't making it. Yeah, years ago, I had a special class. It was of kids who had failed Spanish 1, and they usually failed because of behavior issues. So having 20 all behavior issues in the same class period at the same time was a challenge. And it was first period. So they were set to ruin my day. If they ruined my first period, then could put me in a bad mood the whole day. And I had some egregious behaviors even on the first day of school before the first bell even rang with some of these kids. And it was a problem. So that first day I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do this for another 180 more days. I just can't do it. So I came in with the mentality, I channeled my inner Susie Gross. And if you don't know who she is, she's a retired French teacher. She taught French middle school, and she was a TPRS trainer. And she used to always say, love every child. And it's hard. But I came with the mentality, I'm going to love this class. It's going to be my favorite class, and I'm going to tell them that every single day. And so I did. I told them every single day they were my favorite class. And they told me, no, we're not. You just say that to all of your classes. I say, nope, I'm only saying it to you because you're my favorite class. And I was faking it for the first 4 months of the school year. But I made sure I never told any other class they were my favorite class. I might have called them my coolest class, my awesome class, but never my favorite class. And my kids checked. They asked my other students, who's his favorite class? And they go, it's his first period. It's his first period. But you know what? Going in with that positive attitude really, really worked, because by the end of the year, they were my favorite class. And I loved those kids genuinely, regardless of their behavior or their attitude. And they were the first class that I took on an in-school field trip. I've never done it before. It's too much work, but I took them to a Mexican restaurant for lunch. We went. We took lunch off plus the next 2 periods because we were walking there. And I told them, you're my first class I've ever taken on a field trip, and you'll be my last. And that made them feel really, really good. So that does work. Fake it till you make it. Mariushi says, unfortunately, the main reason kids have lost respect of authority is because of the parents. Yes, parenting has changed so much from when I started teaching 23 years ago till now. It used to be when I would call home, they'd be like, I'll take care of it. And now you kind of get, what did you do to make my kid do that? They put it back on you. So, it is what it is. We have to deal with what it is. I always joke, you have to have a license to fish. You have to have a license for your pet. You have to have a license to get married, but you don't have to have a license to parent. And I think before you can take your kid out of the hospital, you should have a mandatory, crash course in parenting. But anyway, moving on. So let's talk about bathroom passes. I told you what my policy was before, and it has worked forever. Malika says, it makes me feel better about my class management to see that even the pros, I am no pro, like you, have issues with behavior. Yes, we all have issues with behavior. All of us do. If a teacher tells you they have no issues with behavior, they're lying. Every teacher does. It's one of the biggest concerns. When we ask for professional development and I see the surveys, one of the ones that always is put up there is classroom management. They want more professional development on classroom management. So I told you what my original policy was, and it has worked for nearly my entire career. I would have kids sign out, do their business, come back, sign back in, sit down. No interruptions. No, can I go to the bathroom? None of those kinds of things. They would just do what they were doing, and it would interrupt, and I treated them like an adult, whether it was middle school, whether they were 6th grade, whether they were 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade. I taught 6 through 12. Didn't matter. It worked. I had no problems. Most kids did not go every day. Most kids did not go multiple times in one period. And if I saw a pattern, I would address it with them. And I usually made a joke about it when I introduced the rule. I'm like, if I see a problem, then I need to contact your parents because it could be a medical issue. And you don't want me to call your parents saying that you're having a pee-pee problem. because that's going to be a very embarrassing conversation at the dinner table. But if you have a pee-pee problem, it's my job to let your parents know so they can take you to the pee-pee doctor to see if there's a pee-pee issue. And so I kind of made it funny in that way, but I would have that conversation with parents if that became a problem. Well, oh my gosh, last semester, it was a huge problem because they weren't going to the bathroom. They were doing other things along the way, and not necessarily illegal things like drugs or anything like that, but they were on their cell phones. I teach at a career tech academy, and so we have ducks and chickens and other animals because we have an agriculture career and tech part. And so they would go out there to play with the animals, or, oh, the chickens got out, I have to put them back in. Well, they wouldn't have got out if you didn't open the door. Those kinds of things that would go on. And kids would go out 2 or 3 times a class period. And it was getting to be a full-time job contacting parents about it. So I'm changing it this time because, as I said, I'm treating you like an adult until you're not. And I learned last semester that at least right now, the kids can't handle it themselves. So I'm going to do this policy. Now, if I find that I don't need this policy with this group of kids, I will go back to my old policy. But you can't go from less strict to strict very easily. But you can go from strict to less strict. Mariushi says, luckily my bathrooms are inside my classroom. I don't know how lucky you are. What age group do you teach, Mariushi? Because in high school, I don't know if I want that, because some of my kids, knowing how that they loudly fart and loudly burp in class proudly, I don't want to know what they would do in the classroom if they were using the bathroom. I know for elementary that might be more common, but for high school, I would not want that in my classroom. 9th and 10th. Oh, that's unusual. Okay. I've never been in a high school that had the bathrooms inside the classroom. I do have a drinking fountain in my classroom, so the kids don't have to go out for a drink. So I have a sink with a drinking fountain, but I don't have bathroom. But yes, it can be a problem. Yeah, I can see. So here's my solution. And if you guys have other ideas, again, I'm all ears. And I've heard people do this different ways and with less passes than I'm about to give, because I don't know what the magic number is. But I'm going to give my students 5 bathroom passes per month. So that means they can go once a week plus 1 more. So, and if it's a 5-month week, I'll give 6. I'll give 1 more than there are weeks in the month. That's kind of where I'm going with this. And if they don't use them, they can turn them in for participation points. Now, for me, participation points don't add to their grade at all. They are used for rewards. They can buy things from my classroom store, like privileges and rewards. And they like to do that kind of thing. So they can translate those to that. They can't keep the pass. So if they didn't use their 5 passes for the month of September, they can't add those to the October passes, so they have 10. That's not how that's going to work. So they can only have a max of 5 at one time. And obviously for emergencies, there'll be exceptions. But again, I don't want to be interrupted. So on the pass, it's going to have their sign out sheet. They're going to put their name. They're going to put the date. They're going to put the time out. They're going to put it on my desk, and then they're going to go. And then I can collect all of those. If they don't have a pass, if they don't have one of my bathroom passes left, they can't go. So I'm hoping that they will go and say, you know what? I really don't need to go to the bathroom right now. I can hold it. We're really small. The career and tech part of my school is really small. And so they can get to the bathroom in less than a minute. And we have passing periods of 5 minutes. And they really only need 2 minutes, not even 2 minutes, to get from one class to another. I can share. Let me look for hold on a moment, because I don't know. I just made them right before break. So let me see where I stashed them in here. Give me 1 second. Because if I have, if they're in my Google Drive, I can share them out really easily. Let me see. What did I call them? Give me 1 second. And I don't know, I've heard people like they give, 5 per semester, and I don't think that would be enough fairness to also to apply to allow them to when we can't legally prevent them from going to the bathroom. So I want to make sure that that I'm still following in that particular way. Here it is. Okay, let me get it here. I'm gonna get a Google Share. Just a second. Download originals. And let me get a share link here. There it is. And restricted anyone with a link. Copy link. Okay. Mariushi said, yes, those passing periods in my school were 3 minutes. In my old school, they were 3 minutes. Now we have 5. In the main campus, they have 10, which I've never had that long. I've had 7 before, but never 10. But we're a separate site, and we're really small, so 5 minutes what we have. Angela says, I'm interested to hear how that works. I wanted to try something like that, but I had a student last semester, barely passed, who had an emergency every day. And again, if they had emergency every day, I would be talking to the parents to see if there was an actual issue that's going on here. And if I asked her to wait, she'd pull out a pad every time, like, ma'am, I'm also a woman. We aren't on our period every day for 90 days. Yeah, that gets a really sorry. That gets to be a really difficult conversation for us guys to have in there. I've not been able to find any sweet spot about trying to limit my bathroom abusers. Wow, that's a lot of time. Yeah, 10 minutes. Our main campus is designed like a mini college campus, like a community college. We have different buildings for different things. We have a student union, all those kinds of things in there. The best I got was saying, I wouldn't go right now because you wouldn't be able to make up X if you leave. But that only worked for people who weren't abusing it. Absolutely. So yes, I'm going to see how this works, and we'll see how it goes. Here is a link to that file. So you should be able to click it there. It's my bathroom passes, and it's nothing special. I just made it on Canva. And it's just got their name, the period, the date, and the time. I'll print them. I'll cut them out. I'll pass them out. I'll staple them together, 5 of them, and pass them out to each kid at the beginning of every month. And we'll see how it works. Now, if I know someone legitimately has an issue, I might give them a few more passes so it looks like they're still following the rule. It's not like they're making exceptions all the time. But again, that's a discussion with their parents and with the counselor as well to make sure that I'm following the legality of allowing them to go to the bathroom, but not also falling into their, falling into the trap of them. De nada. Yes, I definitely will keep you posted, Angela. Angela says, oh my gosh, gotta poop. My girls would lose it. Yeah, that's my... when I had a QR code for them to log out because I had them do it digitally because they never could tell the time. This way the time was already recorded. That was my little icon that I did. Got to poop up there. And so it was funny. So my kids always laughed. But so that's the thing. You can change the icon. You can make your own on there. Make it out of a Google Doc or however you want to do it. That's what I use. I haven't used them yet. I made my copies. They're all ready to go. I got to cut them out next week. So they're all ready to go on the 13th. And so they'll basically get one more than there are weeks for that month. So for January, when I give the kids the first time, I'm only going to have them for part of the month. So I have them for 1, 2, 3 weeks in January. So I'll give them 4 for that. So that means they can go twice in 1 week. And I'm hoping that's enough. I mean, most of us can hold the bathroom. Most of us can. So we're going to see how that works. Now, we do have, on the main campus, they use an electronic pass system that will lock them out. But we don't use it on our smaller campus. So it locks them out if they're friends, because if we've seen a problem that they're always going out with their friends, we can block it. So if one of their friends are out, they can't get a pass. The system will not give them a pass, so they can't go. Or if they're problematic kids, they can't get a pass at all. We have to have an escort. So we have to call one of our campus monitors, and they have to escort them to the bathroom and bring them back for our real bad abusers. So that's a situation too. So for your girl who always had that abuse, I go, oh, so you're having that issue? I completely understand. And our campus monitor will be happy to help you out with that. Thank God, at least the one that we have, she's also female. So they can go right away. So we'll do that because they want to bring their purse, they want to bring their backpack. I'm like, you don't need all of that to go. You already made it obnoxiously aware what you're doing in there or supposed to be doing in there. So you don't need all that stuff to hide what you're doing there. They're doing it for usually other reasons. Most of the time. Obviously, there are a few times that it is a legitimate emergency. But that's what I'm hoping to do. I'm hoping this is going to minimize my class disruptions and teachers' responsibility to use the bathroom when appropriate and not to abuse the system. And I'm hoping that they're going to learn that, do I really need to take the break right now? Or do I want to wait it for later? That type of thing. That's what I'm hoping for. Okay, so those are the things that at least my big changes that I'm thinking of implementing for second semester. Does anybody have any other ideas or questions or comments they'd like to share before we close out? Mariushi says, that is sad that the abusers are placed with a hallway monitor. Yeah, well, usually to get that far, it's usually because they are really abusive. They're not using the bathroom for the appropriate use, or they're using the bathroom to do drugs or other things. It's usually not because they have a legitimate reason to use the bathroom. It's not those kids. It's the kids who are actually abusing it. And so then they have an escort who makes sure that they go. They wait outside the door. They don't go into the bathroom with them. They wait outside the bathroom. They have the limited time. Like, it's time to go. Let's go. We'll get back to class. Because otherwise, kids will go and walk around the school for 10, 15, 20 minutes. So all different kinds of things. So that's what they do to prevent us, to help the kids be more responsible. And it's only for the few abusers that have that. Mariushi says, thank you so much for your time. You're so welcome. And I'll probably come back because I'll start with my new kids on the 13th of January. So somewhere in the second half of February, I will do a follow-up to what we have here so we can see how it's working for that first month. I want to give it a full month of working with my students with this and see how it works. Angela says, thank you for being so candid. Being able to workshop all your shared issues really is priceless. Yes, thank you. Yes, it was kind of hard to open up all my flaws. And they haven't always been flaws. It's just this new group of kids. It's challenging. And I know I'm not the only one. So I thought all of us could benefit from this. And some of us are suffering quietly. And I figured I would suffer out loud so I can benefit all of us together. Mariushi says, and thank you for sharing all your expertise with us all. You are so welcome. And I always forget, so let me do this before I forget here. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Share this video out with other people so more people can view it, so they can learn as well. And we can all come together with some great ideas, and maybe we can conquer some of these issues together. And with that, I will say goodbye. Hope everybody has a great time back the first week after break. I go back on the 6th. I'm sure most of you as well will be going back then. And I wish you all a great start to the second half of the school year. And I will see you soon. Goodbye, everybody. Mariushi says, I've already subscribed. Thank you, Mariushi. Appreciate it.